But first, our new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, he said it's going to change the country. This was said in his victory speech. And I know the scary way that this is going to go, because I once spent several weeks on the road with the woman he's now picked to make the worst of those changes to divide us by race in our Constitution. And that sure opened my eyes. But there's even more bad news on this front. Some Liberal MPs are so empty of Liberal values, even treating people as individuals, being race blind. They are also Liberals so empty of courage that they are already promising to back this, Labor's most radical change. You take Liberal Senator Andrew Bragg, who sadly is not one of the Liberals, the left-wingers of that party who were cleaned out at the election. This is a man who thinks resisting the left's big cultural war is just an indulgence for Liberals. They've just got to give in. For instance, give in on global warming.
We also can't pursue indulgences and culture wars. Well, climate change is largely an economic challenge, and it is going to be a very expensive transition, which will largely need to be funded by the private economy, including foreign investors. And so it's very important that we send the right signals as a country that we are on track for net zero and even beyond net zero. It is an economic challenge, and it's not a culture war, it's an economic opportunity for our country.
What a fool. Climate change, particularly the alarmism, is a cultural issue. It is an earth religion that is against reason, it is against debate, it is against science. That's why you can't have a calm debate on the evidence with the Greens. They don't want to hear la, 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 la. But Andrew Bragg, like many Liberals, doesn't want to fight against this war. He just wants to help manage the surrender in an orderly way. He doesn't want to fight for religious freedom either, for free speech. These are just terrible cultural wars, you see. They're an indulgence. In fact, he and others even wants to back Labor's plans to make the Constitution more racist.
I have argued that we should pursue the Indigenous constitutional issues.
Okay, well, let's look now at this Indigenous issue that Andrew Bragg said today he wants to help Labor to impose on us. Now, already, Labor's, I think it's probably its very first public move after the election was to change the flag in the media conference room in Parliament, adding the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags, as if we're no longer one people under one flag, but various tribes are each under their own flags. But what Labor really wants to do is go far beyond flying extra flags. First, the Albanese government wants to change the Constitution, hopefully next year, in a vote of Australians, a referendum, to set up a kind of separate advisory parliament called The Voice, just for people claiming to be Aboriginal, like Bruce Pascoe maybe. And if you don't have an Aboriginal ancestor, or you can't invent one, Bruce Pascoe, you can't vote for this. You can't have a voice of your own. And what I want to warn you tonight is even this is not the end of it, this Aboriginal-only advisory parliament, because it's so obvious where this is going philosophically. It's moving ultimately to an official apartheid with various governments inside this one land. Governments based on race. Here is the Albanese government's incoming Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Burney, hinting at exactly that today.
Our absolute principle in terms of First Nations issues is self-determination, and that's got to be at the heart of everything. Okay,
Burney wants self-determination, which sounds fine. We all want to be self-determining people, don't we? But she wants self-determination for what she already says are First Nations, different nations, Aboriginal nations, apart from the one Australian nation. But have you ever asked yourself, what exactly does she mean? What do other race activists mean when they also demand self-determination? Well, 6 years ago, filming an ABC documentary, I took this same Burney to a property outside Cairns to test exactly what she might have in mind. There we met a former ABC journalist, now called Muramu, who with other Aborigines has set up what he called his own nation, the Yidinji Nation, claiming 15,000 square kilometres of land and winning international attention and sympathy. And this country is now issuing its own digital currency. We met the so-called Prime Minister, and Muramu, the Foreign Minister, issued us passes to go into what he insists is a separate Aboriginal country. Now, this is actually not unusual. There have been several other attempts to declare sovereign Aboriginal nations, like this by the people of the Wiradjuri in New South Wales in 2014.
Raising our flag, we declared republic of our country, of our boundary.
You may say this is just crazy stuff, marginal, don't worry about it. You might even think it is offensive and dangerous to divide us like this, but, you know, we're only talking about a handful of people. But here's what scared me when travelling with Linda Burney and visiting this so-called Aboriginal nation with its own Prime Minister, its own Foreign Minister. She actually said she supported it. Supported something that I thought, in fact I said it straight out to the supposed Foreign Minister, is an insult to our common humanity as Australians.
I consider you a fellow citizen, a fellow human being. I don't know why there needs to be some sort of legal separation between you and me where I need a pass just to come and talk to you.
Well, it's a government. You know, governments issue birth certificates.
No, but
so what you're saying is...
I wouldn't say before you can come into my home,
yes,
where's your pass?
So if you didn't accept that piece of paper, why should we accept Australian pieces of paper?
I think this is an extraordinarily brave and fascinating exercise. Yeah, I do approve of it. This model.
Well, you've made another convert, mate. I told you.
No,
I said we were in the ground floor or something bigger. You've got another convert.
I'm saying it has a place. This is one possible model. It is not the natural extension of recognition within the Constitution. It doesn't necessarily mean it's transportable.
Well, she's wrong. It is a natural extension. Logically, it is. If you call something a nation, it is a nation. Otherwise, don't call it a nation, right? And it might not work for the Sydney CBD, but how much of Australia would our new Indigenous Affairs Minister, you just heard her there, how much of Australia would she want to see under Aboriginal-only government? We maybe need a pass to come in, each with its own Foreign Minister, Prime Minister, apartheid nations. How many? And this is the path, this is the danger that some Liberals are now wanting, maybe inadvertently, maybe blindly, not trying to see the ultimate end point. They're wanting to help push this on us. Oh, we can't fight the culture wars, they say. We can't. Let's just, once again, be Liberals managing a Labor program, but better. Well, how about standing for Liberal principles? Like putting the individual above the tribe. Like seeing people as individuals. Like refusing to divide us by race. Do we actually need to argue that now? And if you can't fight for that, you're no Liberal. You're just a waste of Liberal space. Get out. And if even Liberals will not fight against the left's new apartheid, yes, the Albanese government will change this country in ways that you will find will be a terrible, terrible tragedy.